Hey there, I'm Joe McNamee. So here's a little bit about who I am and where I came from. I started out in the real estate world. I remember I was deeply involved in my first deal with my parents when I was 6 years old. You heard that right, 6, not 16. I was 6 years old. So after you get done laughing, go ahead and pay attention to this video a little bit more. So what happened was, in that particular deal, my parents were trying to get our family back together again. So there's my mom, dad, my older sister, and myself, the four of us. We constantly were being put into different places. So I would live with an aunt somewhere, or a grandmother, or a family friend. My sister would live with someone else, and then my parents would usually be together, but at a third person's house. Out of desperation, trying to get the family back together because they needed to get us out of those places, being, people were tired of us being there and so forth and so on, they would find a real estate deal. So my mom was a realtor for 27 years. My dad worked construction most of his life. He did a couple other odd things here and there. But what that one deal was mom looked for a disgruntled landlord, and back in that day it was called the ghetto. Today we call it war zones. Back then it was definitely called the ghetto. So she would look for a disgruntled landlord. Someone tore up the house, moved out, and they're looking to rent it again. And she would have us dress in our best clothes we had, and we would go together as a family to meet with the landlord at the property. So she would negotiate with the landlord to buy the property. So she'd have a purchase price locked in place. And that particular deal, I believe the purchase price was $12,000. So this is me remembering way back then, but I've told the story several times. So the purchase price is $12,000 as is, and then Dad would start negotiating with the landlord that we would go ahead and move in, and when we moved in, we would work on the place and fix it up. We would buy the material, but we would not pay any rent living there. So then Dad would do that negotiation, and then the final part of this was that Mom would be able to put the property up for sale that she didn't own. Remember, they're only renting. Once it's all finished, put it up for sale, find a buyer, and then in this case, I think the sale price was $19,000, $20,000, right in there. May have been just a little bit more than that, but I think after everything was all said and done, they received $19,000. But she set it up where she was selling it at a back-to-back closing. So in the morning, the closing at the attorney's office was them buying it. They didn't have any money to buy it with. And then in the afternoon, the closing attorney was closing with Mom and Dad selling the property that they just bought that morning to the end buyer that afternoon. Now remember, this was back in the 60s, but that's what I grew up in. That's the world I grew up in. That was the first deal. And then once that happened, the first part of it where we were able to move in, we would move in fighting rats and roaches and the neighborhood because of, a bunch of thugs and blah, blah, blah. But that's the kind of world that I grew up in with real estate in the very beginning. Now, am I telling you need to learn how to do blood, sweat, and tears real estate? Of course not. But I just want you to know that's where I came from doing that as a kid. So I continued doing real estate deals like that, and Mom and Dad never, this is the craziest thing in the world. Everyone deals with some sort of a fear monster. Their fear was do a real estate deal, and making $6,000 or $7,000 off a real estate deal was pretty good money back in the 60s. But making that amount of money, in their mind, they could only do it once, and then Dad would go hunt for a $3 or $4 an hour job in some other state. So then they take the profit. That particular deal, they bought a moving truck. We moved to Florida, and we lived in a hotel, like a Norman Bates style motel, while they drove all over the place every single day, using up all of their money trying to find a place, to live and a job. And so they never, in their fear, they never counted on themselves to do one real estate deal after another real estate deal after another real estate deal. They would do it out of desperation to get themselves out of debt, out of a bad situation, and then go back to working for the man again. All right, so out of that fear, I kind of picked up on it, and I kind of followed through along with it. When I decided to, at 18, join the Army to get a guaranteed income, hospitalization, and a career that I could retire from very early in life. So at 18, I'm looking to join the Army, so that meant by 38, I could collect a retirement check. And so that was my plan. Okay, so now I'm still a teenager, I'm in the Army, and then I started realizing in the Army there were all these different types of opportunity that I didn't know existed. For example, I didn't know that you could join as an officer. So I thought you had to join as a brand new E1 or E-nothing private and then work your way up through the enlisted ranks and then go into the officer ranks. So I knew nothing about it. I didn't have anyone that I could relate to or talk to about any of that. So when I got in there and I started seeing all this opportunity, it was like, wow. And so I kind of threw myself into that. Meanwhile, simultaneously, every time I'm in a station in the States, I'm doing some real estate deals. And it was great money, but my security, my safety from the way that I grew up was getting that guaranteed retirement check at the age of 39. So that's what my focus was that. And then to tolerate being shot at around the world. I've been in 3 different combat zones, and then there's a lot of peacetime things that went on, and then things that were not talked about even to today that happened or were about to happen. But just in that world, my focus was to get the most I could out of it. So I became an officer, and then I learned through hands-on, first-hand application of how to manage millions of dollars, millions and millions and millions of dollars of assets, and then how to lead people even across an entire country. So that's kind of the stuff I was in, and I was kind of high on the hog with that, but not really making a whole lot of money. You know, anybody in the military, when they retire, they're not setting the world on fire. They're comfortable and things are okay, and I'm not complaining about that at all. But the bottom line is the amount of money, and I'll give you an example. The amount of money that I make off of my retirement is less than one real estate deal that I did. This one was a long-term real estate deal. This was not a short one. This one took me about 9 months to get it ready to produce the income. So I spent 9 months on it. It was a commercial deal, and the income from it is way more than my retirement income, counting all my benefits added to that. So you just kind of can think about it. But still I have a lot of pride in knowing that I served our country, and I did the best I could with what I had and what I knew. But I took that experience and those things that I was able to do there. I did some real estate outside the country. I wasn't too comfortable with that. If it was an English-speaking country, I would have been much more comfortable with it, but it wasn't English speaking, so it was I just felt like everybody in the closing tables in the rooms and everything were on one side, and then I was on the opposite side, and even the people that were with me and helping me, I still felt like they were on the other side because they had this bond of being able to speak the same language, and I didn't have that. So I started to realize that my parents, their mistake was massively hitting me right in the front of my face while I'm in all of this, and it was about 3/4 of the way through my career that I started realizing, holy cow, they should have this, that, and the other, when in fact I was living it right in that moment. I should be doing such and such or so and so. So then I got stationed in Korea. And Korea is a hardship tour. There was no conflict, so to speak, going on, a major threatening conflict happening while I was there. So I had a lot of free time. And so I brought my wife and daughter over a couple of times while I was there for a few months at a time. But I had a lot of time to kind of think, and I'm one of these people that kind of creates a spreadsheet and all this kind of stuff and think it out and all this analytical crap, right? And so I thought out, what am I going to do when I retire? What do I actually want to do when I retire from the military, which was coming up just in a few years at that point in time. And so I created a part-time construction business while I was in the service, and my plan was to transition that into a full-time construction business and integrate my real estate deals into my full-time construction business and let my crews be part of that plan. So the structure went like this. I would market my business, my construction business, pick up real estate or construction deals, pick up, building houses, renovations, additions, building some commercial deals, doing some land developing, subdividing, selling off pieces, building on pieces, all this kind of stuff. But I took my crews and I taught them how to be multi-talented. So in today's construction world, a typical builder or general contractor has electricians that are subcontractors, plumbers are subcontractors, heating and air subcontractors, flooring subcontractors, concrete, sheetrock, all of them are subcontractors. So none of them are on the staff or employed directly by the general contractor. Well, that meant that there was a manager paid or an owner or both paid in each one of those fields, which means that there was a whole lot less money for the general contractor to receive on the deals that they did. So I structured my construction company like this. Kind of an old school thing. When my dad talked about this back in my grandfather's days, they called subcontractors tailgaters. They were guys that would ride in on a truck and on tailgate, and they'd do a specific piece of maybe building a house, one little part, and then they'd leave. So they were referred to as tailgaters before they were subcontractors. But I structured it to where I taught the people on my crews to be multi-talented, so they could do the concrete work, they could do the flooring work, they could do the sheetrock work, they could do the cabinets, they could do on and on and on, you understand? So then I only hired a few subs, a few different things. Typically, if it was a big job, I'd hire an electrical subcontractor, plumbing subcontractor, and heating and air subcontractor. All the rest of the stuff we did in-house, and I taught each one of them how to do each one of those things. That meant that 40 hours a week, my people worked every single week, no matter what, 40 hours a week. They always had the benefit of that. But here's the other thing that happened. Each time I pick up a real estate deal, maybe a fixer-upper, then I would hold on to that, and then I'd give my guys an opportunity that if they wanted to work, we worked 4 days a week, 10-hour days. But if they wanted to work a fifth and sixth day of the week, they could on these other deals. Or if the weather was inclement and we were between jobs, or we weren't able to do that job because it was going to rain for a week, then they could go inside of my fixer-uppers and work on them. So no matter what, they had more than 40 hours a week that they could work and be part of it. And so it was very secure with the people that worked for me in my construction company. Meanwhile, each time we're getting places ready, they're going up for sale. Typically in that day I was using a realtor to sell them, because it was a conventional wisdom world back when banks could write checks easily and all that kind of stuff. So that's the way I structured it, and then I started realizing, oh my gosh, I am doing what my parents and my grandparents should have been doing. I am doing it now, and now I'm retired from the military, and that frees up my time to be able to focus 100% on my construction and real estate business. And so then at this point in time, this is when I looked at, you know what, I don't really need the construction business anymore. I don't need it to be all this complicated and costly entanglements and all that kind of stuff. I can do real estate and just be focused on real estate. And so I sold my construction company to someone that was happy to get it and happy to get the people along with it, so that all the people that were in my business were all handed over with the business, and we're able to work together from there. Okay, so now I've retired from the military. I got my full-time construction business going. I got my full-time real estate investing business going. And this building right here is the one I was referring to, where I make more money from it. And that was before I did 2 additions on this. Make more money from it than I do from my retirement check, with all of my additional benefits to go along with that. This makes me more 9 months time versus 20 years time. Now, I'm not complaining about the military, don't get me wrong there, but bottom line is I'm focused now with the ability to pay attention to real estate more, because I don't have to worry about the Army. And the construction is happening, it's rolling along, it's flowing good, everything's fine, so I can focus more on real estate. So then I started realizing that I had plenty of ability in the real estate world that no one else knew how to do. And it came from listening to my grandparents and my parents and my grandparents' friends, just sitting at their tables and paying attention to all the things they were doing in the 40s and the 50s with seller financing and with leasing with the right to sublease and with structuring all different types of deals, fix and flips, all those things before there were even names for that stuff. They were doing that stuff. And so my mind just kept going back to that. Each time something that I was doing was a little bit creative, it was coming from me knowing what they did to solve their problems way back in the day. As my oldest son says, a minute ago, whatever that really means, I don't know. But the bottom line is, now real estate is becoming extremely profitable for me compared to all the costly entanglements and time that it takes to do the construction jobs. Okay, so now I'm realizing that it's time to sell my construction company. So I took all my people, sat them down, found the right buyer for my construction company who would keep all of the same people and do the same things, and then I would consult that company, my company that was being bought from me, so that they can continue on. Okay, so that was the plan. That's what I did, and then I focused more on real estate. I also realized that there was no need in doing fixer-uppers. There was no need in all of that additional aggravation that was going on. Then I realized that people were going to seminars, to boot camps, to events, to learn how to do real estate investing. Well, I was trying to get paid for my construction company when I sold it from an investor who bought it, who wanted to do construction. He owned property in Atlanta. I'm flying back from Pennsylvania, and in this magazine, in one of those Skyways magazines, there's this event that's coming up, a real estate event in Atlanta. Well, he needed to sell properties there to pay me the rest of what he owed me for buying my construction company. So I'm like, hey, let's go to this real estate event and I'll find a buyer there for his properties so that he can pay me the rest of what he owes me for the construction company. So got with him, we went there, and all of a sudden, this is when I found out that there's all these people going to these events trying to learn how to do real estate. And I knew how to do real estate, and I knew more, 1,000 times more than the people on stage, just by listening to what they were saying. But these people didn't realize that. So I'm looking at this and I'm seeing people are trying to learn, and they're spending way too much money trying to learn. So I decided that I was going to learn how to put those same butts in my seats to teach them for a much more reasonable price. So that's what I did. I created a training company to teach people how to do real estate deals and not cost them a fortune to do it. Well, when I did that, I was focused on everyone else's business. So then I realized that I needed to get connected with people who were teaching so that I could learn how to put butts in seats. So I did that. Well, while I was doing that, I started becoming friends with all these people that had traumatic stories, horrible stories about how they couldn't do real estate deals, but they were spending tens of thousands, even over $100,000 on their real estate deals. So when that started to hit my heart, I tried to explain to them what to do, but because I wasn't standing on that stupid stage, it was 2 feet higher. They weren't listening. So then I got to the point where, listen, just come to my office operation. Watch me and my staff work together and do real estate deals. You'll find out it doesn't take more than a 6th grade level education, and you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to learn how to do this. They started coming, and that's when I realized how I should build my training company to do this. So I took my training company and I put my real estate deals that I'm doing in my training company as training aids to teach people how to do this. We still do that today. So there's my story on how I became a real estate teacher and still doer. While I do real estate deals, which makes me a whole lot more money than the training, you get to learn from me by my firsthand experience. You realize how to hit the moving target, which the real estate business is. When I started doing deals, it was way before all the crash and all that stuff happened, but I made even more money when the crash happened. Everyone else was sitting there scratching their head, not knowing what to do, and I couldn't understand why they didn't realize how to adjust to it, this moving target. So I can teach you how to adjust to that moving target, just like I've taught so many others before you. I'm Joe McNamee. Thank you.